You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Betoota Advocate on Desert Rock FM.
Welcome back to the Betoota Advocate radio show. Slowly getting my voice back after a beautiful tour of the tropics up there. Actually, we can talk about this a bit later with today's guest. He's very familiar with the region I was in.
You sound tanned.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, I've been playing up like a barley watch. But I did spend a little bit of time in Cairns and north of Cairns the last week or so. I'm of course Clancy Overall, editor of the Betoota Advocate, joined by Wendell Hussey, the Eternal Cadet, and today's guest is an old friend of the newspaper. He's an old friend of a lot of people. I guess you'd call him a national. Well, I'm starting with Cairns. You're from Cairns, but you sang a song called Old Fitzroy.
Well, I'm not from Cairns. I lived in Cairns for 3 years.
You lived in Cairns, so you spent formative years of your youth in Cairns, spending a lot of time in Sydney nowadays, but also you're an icon to the people of Northwest WA because of Brand New Day and all the joy you brought the world going on 10 years ago now.
A little while,
You've done a lot for a lot of people right around this country, not to mention, some of your storytelling from, the mob, your mob back in Central Australia. So, Dan Sultan, thank you for taking the time to speak to this humble Western Queensland newspaper.
That's a lovely intro. I don't know if I'm subscribing to all of it, but I appreciate your words. And, you mentioned Cairns, and I'm lucky to I feel like I have a few homes. When I lived in Cairns, I didn't feel like it was my home.
That was in your new metal era.
Yeah. Oh, pre-new metal. Yeah, very new metal. New metal. Yeah. I mean, once I started going back, I'll never forget it. I think I was about 18. I was moved back to Melbourne, where I grew up, and I went up and I was at a mate's place in the pool, and we'd gotten a bit stoned, and I was just in the pool looking through some palm trees at the mountain range over a cane field. And it was like, fucking, this is amazing. And ever since then, I've just been like, whoa, yeah. I love that place. Yeah, beautiful country.
That moment, geez, this is all right.
It was great. It was really good. I was sitting on like a inflatable thong or something like that, or a flamingo or something. It was perfect.
There's a little bit of that for you this weekend, wasn't there, Clancy?
Yeah, I got to see Port Douglas for the first time. I got to see Port Douglas with locals, which was a bit different.
How were they?
Oh, the locals are great fun.
It's a nice place, isn't it?
It's a nice place. I mean, it's obviously a tourist town, and it's obviously the well-heeled of Melbourne and Victoria kind of treat it like their little getaway. But the locals were interesting, and I learned a lot of things about the development of Port Douglas and how it has actively not been overdeveloped. Speaking to a few of the old heads up there, did you know which I thought this was a great metric and a very Queensland metric to prevent overdevelopment, was that nothing in Port Douglas can be built taller than a palm tree?
Yeah, that's great. I didn't know that, but you say that, and it's like I've known it my whole life.
Yeah.
Is that a Port Douglas thing?
It's a Port Douglas thing. It's kind of their own self-enacted, I guess, council.
I love it.
So the second story is the penthouse.
Yeah, that's it. And also they didn't want, because the early days of Port Douglas, from the water, all you'd see was the Sugar Wharf, the Catholic Church, and the pub, and pretty much everything
what more
else.
Could you possibly
that's
need?
all you really want. Yeah. But you can't see anything else. You can't see the town from the water, which also is, I guess, adds to the...
Yeah, right. And that was a planning decision?
Yeah, just from the early
that's pretty
kind
great.
of builders up there.
I remember going up there again once. I'd moved back to Melbourne and I was up there on holidays.
Yeah.
And a few mates came up and we drove to Port Douglas on a Tuesday or something. And I remember we couldn't even get a pie. We just drove there, looked at it, lovely, and then just drove back to Cairns. There was nothing open. It was just like, no, this isn't.
Was it summertime maybe?
I can't. Well, it might have been summer. Which is the wet season up there, and typically not the tourist season. But I remember thinking, okay,
looks lovely.
Yeah, it looked great, but geez, we were hungry.
Is it one of those resorty regions where it's like everything's within a kind of resort
there
or a
are
hotel?
There are resorts there, and it's big, those resorts, but the town itself, I heard somewhere recently that you're not allowed to build taller than a palm tree.
I I do love those
No,
parts
it's
of
pretty.
the world.
From what I remember, I haven't been there in a while now, but yeah, from what I remember, it was pretty chilled out. You know.
Do you remember
Queensland
from
town.
your time in Queensland the relentless humour of tourism shops? I just saw in Cairns as well on the weekend. Lots of the shut up and fish hats, or my favourite, of course, is women want me, fish fear me, as a hat or a shirt.
Oh, there's some. Yeah. Well, I a few years ago got my dream car while I'm still allowed to have it, and I'm all for electric vehicles, and that's obviously where we're going. But I got my dream car, which was a Land Cruiser.
Oh, yeah.
So I was sort of exposed to that delightful subculture, and a lot of it is delightful. I mean, my wife and I, with our daughter before our son was born in 2020, just went on a massive drive. You know, like 18,000 kilometres, huge. You know, and you know you meet some really lovely people, and there's roads that only those cars can go on. So, you know, but then you see some bumper stickers and you think, you know, like Diesel and Soot.
Diesel and Soot gets
Gets the what's the name, you know, and, you know, pretty charming stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
the BNS culture in itself is, I mean, Denny Utemuster is home to those bumper stickers. One I saw was a bright pink, must have been an old Valiant Ute, covered in those stickers. And it was obviously owned by an older woman, and on the front it said Bundy Nana on the windshield in pink,
just in case there was any doubt.
And then on the back, she had a bumper sticker saying, "Roll me in rum and throw me to the Cowboys."
Man,
Jesus,
life's a
man.
good time.
yeah.
Come on, Nan.
Well,
Pops in the home. She's out
Are
there.
you going to
living
the
it up.
Denny Ute Muster this year? Am I going to the Denny?
Yeah. Next question.
Yeah. Well, it's you know, we started this line of discussion with the relentless, as you say, comedy of the tourist stores, and I went in and I actually bought a singlet, pretty daggy tourist singlet.
Yeah.
And they had one singlet, you know, and she directed me straight towards the large, and I said, "Yes, thank you, I can find it." She goes, "Yeah, this way." It's like, "Righto, mate." Yeah, looked me up and down. Anyway, that's another story. I'm doing well, actually. I'm feeling good. But,
You're feeling good? You're
that's
looking well?
Thank you. I look
How
fantastic.
long now?
Well, I'll just say it was a singlet saying Cairns 1988 and someone standing with a surfboard. Like they'd lifted the image from the old Endless Summer film.
Yeah, right,
you know?
right.
And it's like, oh yeah, that famous swell of Cairns.
Yeah.
It was like it got past the Great Barrier Reef
Yeah.
and it landed on the shores, you know, and it was
Every time you talk to surfers, you go, "What's the furthest north you've surfed?" And there's always usually Sunshine Coast, but sometimes you'll meet one of those sickos that's gone up to 1770 and found a wave coming in through the reef.
Yeah. And there's folks that'll go out, you know, past the reef and just like, let's go out there.
Open
you
ocean,
know, Coral Sea onto the reef.
It's proper adrenaline junkie stuff.
Yeah. I mean, my wife grew up surfing and she's pretty coordinated. I was never that coordinated. The boogie board, no dramas. You know what I mean?
Esky-litting,
But I'd look at people that would do that stuff, like jumping off the rocks, and you know, and we spend a bit of time down south, and you see them, and you just think, you know, I did go out once. I used to work with someone who's a really great surfer, and he took me out. He lives down on the Great Ocean Road, and he took me out with him once, and I was pretty young and pretty fit, and I thought, all right, no worries, and I didn't even get out before my arms were just like
helped you
concrete. You know,
began sympathising with Harold Holt.
It was bad. Yeah, I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to be the Prime Minister. Yeah.
So how long has it been that you've been living this healthy lifestyle now? I reckon you'd be
about 4 years now.
4 years.
Yeah, we moved up before. We've got family there.
Yeah.
My in-laws are all from there. So we moved up before our first kid was born.
Yeah.
And so about 5 years.
I've noticed and I say this to most people you can tell when someone is living a lifestyle as healthy as yours, you know, where the touring lifestyle is no longer the same for you. You've got the whites of your eyes. You know, you don't have that perennial burnout look of a musician.
No. Well, that's it. I mean, I definitely did it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a person who likes to experience things in life. You know, so I've done it. You know, I was talking to a mate before I got married. Actually, we eloped on that trip that I mentioned before. That big trip we did in 2020. We got married on the way home. It was really beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there were 7 people there, and 3 of them were my then fiance, now wife, and our daughter and myself. You know, it was pretty good. And
Well, congratulations, mate.
Oh, thank
I
you.
didn't know.
Yeah.
You kept that one pretty
Yeah,
tidy.
the thing is about eloping is as peaceful as it is and beautiful. I mean, there's no presents. You know what I mean? So we thought, should we still ask for presents? And like, we better not. There were a couple of presents, you know, here and there. But he asked me if I was going to have a bucks, and at that point, I hadn't had a drink in a couple of years by that point, and I was like, I've had a bucks, mate. I've had, you know. Yeah. No, I'm all right.
On the dirty mile, you had a few bucks parties.
Dirty mile, yeah. You know, clean mile, dirty mile, you know, half mile, 10 miles. Yeah.
Golden mile.
Yeah. It's been a bit, I'd certainly, you know, I'm not going to die wondering.
I want to know about your songwriting since you've, you know, kind of settled, I would say. As you said, you've lived, you had a crack.
I'm living now, but I'll just say, you know.
Yeah, you've lived hard as well.
And I'm certainly not saying that you're implying anything, but, you know, if I do sound like, you know, sometimes I feel like I've done a lot of press around this, you know what I mean? And you just get a bit sick of and I know I'm talking, you know, we're mates, so whatever, but it's kind of, there's a bit of a narrative that, like, things used to be shit, and now they're great. I used to be shit, and now I'm great. It's like, no, I was great before, and I was shit before, and I'm great now, and I have my moments now. You know what I mean? There's nothing. I go for St Kilda Football Club, and we've got a really amazing philosopher as a coach who I love. His name's Ross Lyon, and nothing's binary, you know. And nothing in life is binary. So I'll be paraphrasing Ross Lyon throughout the interview. I do it throughout my life. I was in a meeting the other day, and I did it with my manager.
St Kilda fans.
She goes for the Saints too. So
St Kilda fans have to find a way to you know, keep
pushing put up with plenty of shit times.
You got to, I know Tex Perkins says, if we won the flag, it'd be weird because, you know, I'm sort of comfortable with being the underdog, and friends have asked me about that, and I'm going, that's a just coping mechanism. He's just had to make that make sense because of his life. But what I was going to say is that it's, you know, nothing in life is either this or that, you know, binary. It's just, you know, things are complicated, people are complicated. I'm in a really beautiful place, and, you know, that'll sort of go on to your question, which I interrupted.
About
the songwriting.
No, the inverse of what you're saying is there's this narrative of, when you do go, you know, you do go straight and you do dry out, there's this narrative that, you know, nothing's happening in your life. You know what I mean? You go from...
I'm fucking exhausted,
Yeah,
mate.
that's it. You got 2 kids under 5 at home, and you've got a bit of space, and you're working. So I'm asking with the songwriting now, how has it changed? Because I know what musicians are like, especially younger musicians who are caught in that hard living when they're making songs. You know, they're making songs on the piss, they're making songs on benders and all kinds of stuff now. Have you found it's a completely different process? And I want to know about what the process is now for you.
Sure. Look, I feel like I made really great stuff. I found when I was younger. You know, I'm really proud of all the work I've done. That being said, I mean, the work I'm doing now is so fulfilling just for the work itself. And I think it comes with being, you know, a bit older and, you know, having done a few days' work between then and now, you know. As you say, I got 2 under 5 and, you know, got responsibilities, and I believe in the work, so I'd like it to do well. But at the same time, you know, the work from a purely artistic standpoint, I'm just totally fulfilled, you know, which is a really incredible place to be, you know. To be a writer, a painter or poet or musician, to be fulfilled within your work is a nice thing, you know. And that fulfillment with me is not something that I'm then able to rest on. The fulfillment, and what a huge part of that fulfillment is the constant challenging myself. You know, I worked with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra a couple of weeks ago, and I had a few songs to sing, and one of the songs I wasn't as prepared as I would have liked to be, and frankly as I usually would be. You know, but for some reason I just wasn't with this particular one, and I was really fucking pissed off at myself and frustrated and a bit embarrassed, you know. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That kind of, you know, I wouldn't go as far to say humiliation, but you know,
beating yourself
humility,
up a little,
humility is a powerful thing, especially if you've got a bit of an arsenal, and especially if you've got the capabilities to really dig in, you know, and kind of double down a bit, you know. So that fulfillment is here because of many things, and one of those things is challenging myself, you know. But I will say that there's my songwriting before I wrote a song called Wait in Love.
Yep.
It's just like there's all the songs up until then, and now there's all the songs after that.
You reckon that was the
Wait in Love for me is like fucking, you know.
How would you define that metaphorically? It wouldn't be a fork in the road. It was what was it? It is a
An
before
arrival.
and after moment.
It's an arrival.
It's an arrival?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And, you know, you arrive somewhere because you've been somewhere else.
Yep.
And, again, I'm proud of the stuff and where I had been. And I've collaborated a lot, and I've worked with some really great songwriters. I've been really lucky, and I've been lucky to become a great songwriter myself, you know. But it's not a given, and it's not something that you can rest on. You know, you arrive at a place like this, and it's like you've arrived at work.
Yep.
You know, you get your dream job. Now you get to start working.
Yeah.
You know, that being said, I guess I've always felt like that, you know, which is something that I really appreciate, is that nothing's been more important than what I'm doing right now, you know. Mm-hmm. And everything I did before was practice to what I'm doing right now.
Did you feel a bit of pressure with that? Because this is the 7th album. It's reflective. And it feels big, like you're writing it and getting it out. Did you feel the pressure of that, to put it all out there, the rawness, the vulnerability, that sort of stuff?
I think I definitely did, but I think I felt the pressure before it.
Yeah.
Every other album.
Last time we spoke about Killer, which I think was a sensational album.
Yeah, it's a great album.
It's a great album.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was a feeling there. It was unsung a little bit.
Yeah.
You know? It was unsung by the landscape, by radio, by whatever. Was that playing on your mind too coming into this one? Because you've done a lot of work since then, but this is...
Well, that was the pressure that we were just sort of talking about.
Yeah.
You know, you just think, oh, well, fuck it then.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. For a couple of years of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, at the time, and sitting here now and speaking to you now, I mean, I approached that record in, you know, a pretty toxic way from an artistic standpoint. And I don't mean, you know, the cocaine and fucking vodka.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing it thinking about a radio station. I was doing it thinking about a festival bill.
Yeah, right.
You know, and then you don't get the radio station, and that flows on to not getting the festival bill.
Yeah.
And you just go, well, fuck it then.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And then years later, I keep coming back to this, but I write Wait in Love.
Yeah.
And it was honestly just such a... This is just a beautiful, beautiful song.
Yeah.
Really well written. I wrote it with Joel Quartermain, I got to say, who's my producer and best mate and incredible musician and producer, artist. You know, and it's like, oh, well, fuck it. You know, this is what I want to do.
Yep.
And I'm proud of Killer, and I think it's really beautiful, but at the same time, you know, mate, at that time in my life, you know, I was running at max 65%.
Redlining.
Yeah, you know, and you just kind of, you're spinning plates and you're full of shit.
Yeah.
I was full of shit.
Yeah.
And when you're affected like that and you think, oh, well, it's all right because no one else knows or whatever, well, no one else cares, for starters.
Yeah, right.
So the fact that you're getting around thinking, oh, well, I'm tricking everyone here, no one gives a shit, right? And secondly, you're bullshitting yourself and you're full of shit. You're not being as good as you can possibly be. I was disrespecting my talent and my gift. I was making people around me worried. So the sobriety thing, right?
Yeah.
Being sober is big, but it's just another box that's been ticked in going from one space to another, right? And I remember the moment. Okay, I was in rehab, and I wasn't staying in a rehab. I was staying at home, and it was 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Anyway, I went in and my counsellor, who's still my counsellor now and a good friend of mine, asked me if I'd been to a meeting the night before, which I was supposed to. You know, you're supposed to be going to these things. And I said...
when you're off the clock too, yeah.
Yeah, well, you're never off the clock, you know.
No, but when you walk out of that
I know
place,
what you mean, but I'm just being a bit, you know, I'm never off the clock.
I know,
mate.
sobriety's not 9 to 5.
No, we're going to go get lunch, and I'm still on the clock there. Yeah, I'm sober from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Yeah, and it's working out great. And he asked me if I'd been to a meeting, and I said that I had. Yeah. And 2 minutes later, I was like, what am I doing? Yeah. I'm here, you know, from a pragmatic, practical standpoint,
Yeah.
financial standpoint, it cost me a fucking fortune.
Yeah. To be in there.
And I'm
and
talking
live.
shit to this
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
who doesn't give a fuck, really. He only cares about it in how it's going to affect me.
Yeah.
But he's not going home, thinking about every single person that's talked shit to him,
Yeah.
About their sobriety.
Yeah.
And I just got pulled him aside, and it was in front of people. It was in the tea room,
Yeah.
at the Lipton next
Yep.
to the honey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Couple Arnott's bickies
Blend
there.
43,
Yeah.
Arnott's assortments. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was serious. I couldn't bring Dilmar in. I was like, fuck. They're like, no, you can't bring in your own tea bags, mate. Like it was pretty full on.
Can't bring anything
And I told
in
him,
here.
I told him. I said, look, that was a lie. And it was a light bulb.
Yeah, right. That was the moment.
It was the moment, man. It was just like,
Got to stop talking shit.
what am I doing?
Yeah.
And I was generally a pretty honest person,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I would tell lies when it was about stuff, about there would be some lies along the way like that, and you just kind of, and it's this spinning plate stuff.
Yeah.
And what I've been able to get to since then is I've been able to get to a place where I'm not fucking flogging myself over that, because I've had a bit of shame around it. Look, I took as long as I needed to take to do what I needed to do. And when I was ready, I did it. And now I've been sober over 5 years. I was sober for a year before the birth of my first child. They've never seen me pissed. They've never seen anyone pissed.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? I grew up in a house that didn't have any alcohol in it, and if it was occasional. My dad had occasionally, very, very rarely, and it was never scary. It was never toxic, and it
Get
was
a bit
just,
giggly.
well, a bit sleepy. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
It was never anything like that, and I remember always thinking and wanting that for my kids. You know what I mean? That kind of environment and that relationship with alcohol, and I knew that I had a problem for a long time. But it wasn't. So the sobriety was just a thing that came along with that. Just fucking, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So when I
Yeah, okay,
when
so
I
that's
sit
the
down at the
box tick.
piano and I write "Wait in Love,"
Yeah.
and I think, oh well, fucking Triple J aren't going to play this. It's
Yeah.
like, well, who gives a shit? You're
Yeah.
a fucking artist.
Yeah.
And they didn't play your last album anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
They didn't play your Rockstar album.
so who gives a shit?
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what
yeah.
I mean? Who gives a fuck? You know? And it's not just Triple J. I've named them, but it's not just them. It's the whole thing. I mean, if you're an artist and you're working for anyone else, and anyone else's wants or needs or expectations, it's a toxic fucking scene. You got to do it sometimes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like my management, they're really great. I mean, they know a lot about content and social media,
all that.
and so they're getting me to do things
Yeah.
that I think are embarrassing,
Yeah.
until I do them and then I like them. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I'm just getting used to it. And the fact is that I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
No one has to do anything.
I do want to ask, though, we can talk about the sound and we can talk about the fucking avenue, but, like, I think of artists. We interviewed Tex Perkins the other day, and I think...
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we had a good chat with him there.
Coping mechanism.
Yeah, the old
All I'd say.
the concealed martyr. But there's also, Tex Perkins exists in folklore. I would argue a household name, even in non-muso kind of households.
Absolutely.
And Don Walker was another interview we did the other day. Aside from Chisel, all of Don Walker's work is lauded, but it isn't that mainstream.
You talk to an artist.
Yeah. You've got musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Don, he's had a lot of commercial success, obviously. But, a lot of his work is, as you say, not as, but I mean, I think that goes for anyone, really, doesn't it? I mean, Jim Magini, Oils.
Yeah.
I mean, he never stops working.
Yeah.
And most of what he does, and particularly now, the Oils they're done until they do a reunion show, which they have to do
For
one
The
day.
Voice.
Maybe for The Voice, not the TV show. Imagine they did one. Oh yeah, we'll do one for The Voice. Oh great, and they're on that TV show.
Benji Madden spinning
Is this
a
what you
chair.
meant? Yeah, Jason Derulo.
Rita Ora wants you to be on her team.
Yeah. This is it, isn't it? Yeah. So.
But
look,
is that where you start talking about what's going to play live? Is that where you start talking about what's going to play either in a roaring live music venue, like what's the one down there in the Dirty Mile? Workman's or the
The Rob Roy it used to be when I actually did did an album launch at the Rob Roy. It's the Workers though. Yeah, on the corner there.
Whether you're talking about one like that, a joint like that, or you're talking about
we should
stadiums.
say that's Gertrude Street in Fitzroy.
Gertrude Street, yeah.
For all you listeners out there.
Yeah, Gertrude Street.
Yeah, so when I'm writing, I'm writing for stadiums.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm writing without expectations. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I don't have low expectations, but I don't have high expectations.
But you do play stadiums in different capacities. I have been in stadiums. I've seen stadiums. Yeah.
I was talking to my wife this morning. Actually, this is a bit off topic. I'll ask you guys a question. Does it seem now, and maybe it's a post-pandemic thing, but there's just all these massive artists and acts, and it's just like, fuck, there's a lot of stadium shows at the moment.
I think it is a post-pandemic thing, and I think it's hilarious because it's really upsetting in Sydney particularly, people who are like, we moved next to the Sydney football stadium with the promise that there would be 2 live shows a year. It'd be Robbie Williams and it'd be U2.
Yeah, and only them.
Yeah, now
forever.
Bruno Mars and fucking Taylor Swift. They got everything coming.
Where's he from? Yeah. What's her deal? Yeah.
Poor old Taylor Swift can't put on enough stadium shows. She could do one a day for the next year and they'd be sold out.
Yeah,
Poor Tay-Tay.
That was good to see for the girls. I remember that was good to see.
I think it's amazing.
It was great to see a little Beatlemania, you know what I mean?
I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
We were going to start selling our tickets and we got a call from a certain ticket provider saying, don't. Give it a week. Push it back. This is before any announcements. And my manager was like, Taylor! She loves Taylor. So we were pretty lucky that they called, that they sent us through the thing. But yeah.
Now, I want to talk to you about playing stadiums. In Australian psyche, Dan Sultan is the type of artist, and this is a rare title to behold, where you can play an Origin or a Grand Final entertainment, and you're not going to be met with the response of "Who's that? Who?" You know what I mean? That's a tough gig because it's like
I've worked hard for a very long time for that.
It's tough because it's like everyone's like Dan Sultan. Dan Sultan's perfect. Dan Sultan's perfect because anyone else would be viewed as radically experimental. It's like Dan Sultan, Hunters and Collectors, and Chisel. That's all good. Like Briggs is probably getting to that point.
It's a rare thing, yeah.
Because that's a hard crowd to keep happy. The people who have come to watch football.
I did the NRL Grand Final years ago, and it was like a Rolling Stones medley with Phil Jamieson from Grinspoon, Tim Rogers, Davey Lane was playing guitar, of course.
Oh, just the old-fashioned supergroup.
Yeah, forgive me. I'm sure there were others, but it was a while ago, and things are a bit dusty from back then. And I remember them saying, "Tim Rogers, Phil Jamieson, grinners, grinners, Dan Sultan." There might have been a few thousand people cheering, which is usually good, but when there's 100,000 people there and a few thousand people cheer.
Your tour kicks off, the Dan Sultan East Coast Tour, on the 30th of September this year, I believe.
Yes.
Grand final season?
Grand final is usually around that time. Yeah.
First week in October. Any thoughts on a NRL Grand Final return?
I'm available.
AFL?
I'm available for inquiries.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a funny one. You can't help but get flogged.
Yeah.
There's going to be people, but that's just life, I guess. Whatever. You're in entertainment.
I mean, there's people, as you said before, there's people who want Chisel or Hunters and Collectors. In the AFL, they want Hunters and Collectors. In the NRL, they want Chisel. And they play them, and they get the gigs a lot too.
As they should. Yeah. I mean, just get Seymour to sing Holy Grail.
Yeah.
It's literally the Holy Grail of that sport, said sport. You know what I mean? It's a no-brainer.
As I was saying before, you are one of the few who can pull that off. At this point in your career, and I want to talk about.
I don't know if I want to though.
Yeah, that's it. And you've said no before.
I have said no. Yeah. I said no to last year.
Yeah. And why is that?
If you're not careful as a First Nations artist and act, and I think this is particular to me for the point I am in my career. I don't think it's necessarily true. You know, I think a few years ago I probably would have jumped at it. But opportunities, things that are presented as opportunities, if you're not careful, right, they become glass ceilings, okay? So opportunities become glass ceilings. So, I mean, there's only so many times I can stand behind someone and sing a particular song. Oh, that's what you do. You reach a certain point as a First Nations artist, and then you sing this song or you sing that song, you know? And the people that were performing, I know all of them. I've worked with all of them. You know, incredible artists, acts. It's certainly not, I'm not saying anything against any individuals. It's just the look for me, and it's just how things get represented out there, which I've always fought against, and I don't like it. And at the time, I could have used the money, but I didn't want to just do another thing where I'm just there basically because I was Aboriginal.
Colour commentary.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I now know, it's all clicked for me now when you say AFL. This was effectively probably a week after the Hawthorn review had come out too. So there was a little bit of a rushed kind of I do remember it, a very rushed response to that in many, many ways. And it did feel like that's what that would have been, you know.
Yeah,
it was a solid rock was playing, of course.
Well, I don't think it was necessary. I think that was on the cards before the Hawthorn stuff,
Right.
And I'd spoken, you know, in the years previous, and it just didn't work out. And I wasn't about to be in cycle. I was in cycle this year, so it was something that was a bit of a better fit for me and where I was at personally. So, I mean, sometimes things just work out. Sometimes you just get lucky. You know, there was Hawthorn, and then there was that. You know.
Can I ask about the grand final in a slightly tangential thing to it? What's it actually like playing a grand final? Is it a little bit weird in the sense that you've got a couple of songs, you've got a crowd who aren't ready to, you know,
they're not
have
there
a
for you,
boogie?
It sucks.
effectively.
Yeah, is it weird being
sucks.
out there playing?
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's exciting. You know
And
what I
it's
mean?
an awesome-
I will say I haven't played an AFL grand final. I've played the NRL, and NFL. Fucking chill out, settle down. It's a good album, mate. But you know, it's one day at a time. Fucking
Coming down from the ceiling.
hang on a minute.
We'll get you on there
I
with
don't know.
Dre and
He seemed
Shakira.
fine for a while, but then he started. I don't know. He's lost it. Yeah, he should probably get back on the piss.
Super Bowl.
Yeah. Are you sure you're not on the piss? Yeah. I played the NRL, but I have played a few prelims, which are massive, and you know, it's
Full house.
from a practical standpoint, it's essentially the same thing. And yeah, it sucks. I mean, it's exciting, but you can't fucking hear anything. You got these in-ears that are kind of weird because you're in this stadium, and you know, but you do it and you get through it, and you're with people that you enjoy being with. And you have fun and you share something, you know, and then you watch the
You're
footy.
the most
you know.
equipped.
10-minute set looking at a grandma and a grandpa in full Saints kit.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would like to, you know, I think I would like to play the grand final, but I would like to play there as Dan Sultan.
Yeah, not as
That's my thing.
First Nations mega mix.
Here we go. Yeah,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and that's just something. That's just a point I've gotten to in my career. I've enjoyed that before, and I've done that before. And again, I think it's for me personally. You know, I'm just talking about myself here. Obviously, it's just become. I've noticed it become a bit of a glass ceiling.
Yep.
I want to be a bit sensitive to it as well. Look, that's obviously a term that's been around. You know, in relation to women in the workplace and all that kind of thing. So I don't want to speak out of school, and you know, if I've done that or anything, that's not what I want to do. But I think, you know, being a First Nations person, we're not without our own marginalisation and
metaphors
and struggles, you know. So that's just where I'm coming from with that. It's just there are things that are billed as opportunities for one reason or another, which is none of my business, but I have feelings about them.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think you can imagine what some of those might be. I don't think they're all negative, but, you know, they're billed as opportunities. But then if that's the only thing, and if that's the absolute pinnacle of white Australia or these promoters' expectations on you as a First Nations artist, I don't like it, and I'm not paying attention to it, and I'm not giving it oxygen, and I'm not breathing on it.
But it is interesting you say that, because when you actually can remove yourself from it, people wonder, what does that look like? You know, what does that look like for artists who are able to be artists and are able to transcend any glass ceiling or anything like that. And the answer is the Kid Leroy in many circumstances. You know, he
just got out.
Well, he's not doing Coachella. He's not doing Coachella as the First Nations kind of. You know, he's not doing any Welcome to Countries. He's not doing anything like that.
No, he just got out of this place.
Yeah.
And good on him.
Yeah.
You know, and then every time he comes back, they just, you know, not all of them, but, you know, the usual suspects have a go about something, whether it's his family or whatever it is. You know, it's just like, you know, whatever.
Did you see he's sponsored? Did you see he's the? I just saw this today. He's the sponsor for the South Broken Hill Footy Club. They were about to go bust.
Yeah, good on him.
You know, and that's looking after the roots. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't think that's, you know, I think as First Nations people, we definitely experience that a lot. But I think as Australians, I mean, you got to, if you want more, you got to get out. You know what I mean?
What would you say right now your sound is?
Oh, beautiful.
Yep, beautiful.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
Everyone gets put in places by other people as far as what are they, what do they represent, what's the context, how does this person make sense to me? It's not just First Nations people. There are things that are unique to First Nations artists things that exist in that space that are unique to us. But, you know, that happening itself isn't, you know, unique to First Nations. So whatever. I mean, you talk about, you know, when you step away from that, what does that look like for an artist? I mean, for me, it was just really peaceful. You know, mate, we spoke about it before we got in. You know, there was a friend's wedding out in Western Queensland, you know, that I wasn't able to go to because a couple of things fell over at the end of last year. And, you know, doing something like the grand final would have been a big help at that time. Yeah. You know, I got kids and I got responsibilities. So it's a balance, you know. I mean, I'm not so selfish that I'm just not going to do things. I mean, I have to. Some things I have to do, but you just weigh it up. You know what I mean? And it's it was something that I didn't feel was right at the time. You know, so what does that look like? Well, as an artist, it looks great and it feels great. Yeah. And then you go on, you start making your best work, and that's what I've done.
And where are you most excited to get back to? Where are you taking it?
Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane.
Yeah. Oh, big hitters.
Yeah, we're going to do that first, and then we're thinking about some regional stuff. But these are going to be the big shows in beautiful rooms. So the Princess Theatre in Brisbane, which I've never been to, but I've seen and it looks amazing, and I've heard it's really great. And the recital centres in Melbourne and Sydney, respectively, which are just beautiful, big, gorgeous rooms.
Is it just you? What are we talking about here?
No, full show.
Okay.
Full band.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we did some festivals at the start of this year, which were really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've done a lot of work to get the new material up, and it feels awesome.
Well, he's arrived. Dan Sultan has arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, this is him. This is the bloke. You can tune in on an array of different platforms and listen to his new work, or you can go see him live, and we can all together listen to the aftermath of Wait in Love, that before and after moment, the arrival that has led to today's arrival. Thank you for joining us, Dan Sultan.
Thanks for having me.